Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. Okay. How's it going, everyone? This is Jimbo Paris. Welcome again to The Jimbo Paris Show. So today we have a special guest, Andy Hoffman. He is an instructor at Automatic Money Flow. He essentially looks at a lot of things involving finance, and he even joined the U.S. Coast Guard at the age of 21. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's been there for close to about 5 years. So he'll probably clarify that, but let's see what he has to say. This sounds like a very interesting guy.
So, hey man, good to speak with you and your audience today. I'm excited for our conversation. If you want, I can just go ahead and jump into that whole Coast Guard, all of that. Okay. Yeah, so I was 21. I joined the U.S. Coast Guard because I needed a job. I was like post high school working jobs and playing drums for a band and trying to make it in Nashville or move to Nashville. No one was serious. And I was like, man, I really need like a career change. So my brother-in-law said, why don't you join the Coast Guard? And I said, what's the Coast Guard? And after a quick stint on their website, I thought, man, I'm 21 years old. I want to be jumping out of the helicopter, saving lives. And that quickly became a different reality when I got through boot camp and all of that. But I got a $4,000 bonus that just slipped through my fingers, like most probably 21-year-olds would. And so that was an awakening moment where I joke and say that, like most normal people, I went right to the bookstore and bought a bunch of personal finance books. But that was like the nerd in me coming out, I guess. So I dove in and just like went and explored a whole new world. And so I read, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and some Dave Ramsey and everything I could get my hands on. And that just opened up a whole new world of possibility for me.
So what is your profession?
I guess you could say the easiest way to describe it would be financial coach. I'm a solopreneur. I'm running my own business. The intention is to help teach people how to automate everything in their money. So I know you're a productivity guy. And so what kind of struck me is for years, I would try to budget or use apps or spreadsheets and all these things to really accelerate my own kind of money journey. And I'll predicate it on the idea of kind of buying my time back, giving myself more freedom, more options to get out of the corporate 9-to-5 eventually. And so I realized that it just felt so painful to start a new budget every payday. At the time, I was getting like quarterly bonuses and sales commissions, and it just felt like every paycheck was a different number. And so it was very difficult to automate. I knew that some people were able to like set up a Roth IRA contribution and just, set, hey, $400 going in every single time, every month or every other time I get paid or whatever. And having the variable income was such a hurdle for me. So eventually I discovered that there's a way to automate everything in your financial life. And so from a productivity standpoint, it feels like that's the ultimate optimal outcome, that do something once, technology takes over and tells your money where to go for you. So that was very illuminating for me. I remember working for, the largest independent broker dealer, which is a financial firm at the time. And I would just draw this like schematic on a whiteboard in my office and showed it to everybody. It's like, can someone pick this apart? Am I missing something? Like, why shouldn't this work? So eventually I kind of did it myself. I worked one-on-one with some clients. And then over this past year, I ended up going on my own to kind of build a course around this and do one-on-one and group coaching to help people kind of automate everything in their life.
So is that what you're currently doing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's what Automatic Money Flow is, the name for my course, and this kind of process of really putting everything in your financial life on autopilot to optimize outcomes through the lens of really looking at behavior versus, I would say, a spreadsheet is predicated on perfection, right? Like we build this budget. Here's the perfect way that we want to manage this amount of money that we have today. So let's line item every single thing out. Let's look at every single expense. Let's say this is how much we're going to spend on groceries and going out to eat or whatever it is. Like that feels like a very robotic way to do it. In my mind, feels like a very outdated approach because it's predicated on, I'm going to write all these numbers down and then I'm going to try to match my life and fit that into this box of numbers that I created, versus saying, hey, I'm going to zoom out and say, here's what I want to spend in big picture categories. And then I'm going to automatically tell the money to go to these places. As an example, People have a 401k typically at their employer. And when I was like starting out in the financial services industry, I realized very quickly that was people's largest asset, because when they signed up day one at the job, they filled out the form. They said, I'm going to put XYZ percentage in this thing. And then the money just went in there without further intervention on their part, right? The money just automatically went there. And I thought, how can we copy and paste that into the rest of our financial life? So by segmenting out our money in these different buckets, like for me, you don't have to have 17 different checking accounts, right? You can have like 3. So for my wife and I, we each have a joint spending account at a separate bank from where we pay our bills. And then we fill that every week with just a little bit for groceries, toiletries, and eating out. And so just by having a handful of things in there, I'm in the grocery store, I'm in the checkout line, I double check the bank account. Okay, good. I know that I've got this money here ready to rock. And then it drains, we spend it over the course of a week. And then by the next time we need it, it fills itself back up. So there are constraints there, and we want it in a separate bank account, because that way we can't like get our hand in the cookie jar so easily. That 2-day transfer makes it's like a boundary. It's like when you're bowling, as a kid, and you've got like the bumpers. Like that's what this is for your money. It's like kind of these guardrails to protect you from yourself, kind of behaviorally, if that makes sense.
So what do you think a financial advisor does?
A financial advisor does a lot of things, and each one is a little different. I think there's a lot of different categories of them. And so I'll be the first to say I used to recruit financial advisors for a living. So I know a lot about, we could have a real long conversation about that, but there are basically different segments of the industry, part of which really disenfranchised me, I feel like, maybe just big picture wise, because a lot of the financial advisors at the big banks, typically you have to have $250,000 of liquid assets before they want to take you on as a client, which is out of the realm of possibility for most people, right? And so that was very frustrating for me. So there are plenty of good financial advisors out there. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of financial advisors get put into the investment box where, all you're going to do is get me a rate of return on my money or my 401k, or I know that you want to manage those assets because that's how you get paid. And people really put financial advisors in that box. There are plenty of other people that might call themselves like a financial planner that I think they do a lot more. They zoom out, they look at your insurance, they look at your investments, they look at your money management. But all financial advisors, from my opinion, I'd say 90% at least of financial advisors are not incentivized financially to hold your hand through the day-to-day money decisions that you're doing. Yes, they will give you their opinion. No, they don't want to be in the weeds helping you budget, if that's a concern. They don't want to help you with like the granular systems. They're not going to advise you on automation typically, unless it's automating to their firm, if that makes sense. Like sending your money automatically to my firm, hey, great, I'm all about that. But in terms of setting up an overall holistic picture of what automation can look like for the client, that's not something that they do, because the certification material for like the certified financial planner designation was created in the 80s and is not exactly talking about these fintech solutions that exist today to make our lives a lot easier.
Do you think with the rise of technology and AI that financial advising could potentially become changed, or maybe even people who are not as experienced at your level, people below your level, could almost become obsolete in a sense?
I think it's absolutely in part a possibility. In the same way, what I think has been fascinating, like look at ChatGPT, I think has been the biggest standout as of late, that people initially thought that AI was going to take the lower level jobs. And then it went straight for the jugular for like the artists, in a sense. When you look at some of these AI platforms where you can type in like monkey riding a bicycle, flying a kite, and it instantly creates this image, it's wild, right? So there's that side of things. And then a lot of white collar jobs are being potentially taken. I feel like I saw something on social today about someone losing, their family member losing a job at BuzzFeed because BuzzFeed came out and said that they're going to be rolling in ChatGPT as part of their creative process, right? So I do think, to your point, that it's certainly possible for financial advisor jobs. I would say the call center type advisor that's working for a large institution. Like, I'm going to throw out a couple names here. So there's Merrill Lynch, which is owned by Bank of America. There's a program called Merrill Edge, which if you don't have the 250, then you are getting relegated to the call center if you're a customer. And so, you don't have a real life human being that's your person. Typically, you're going to be reaching out to a 1-800 number, get someone in a cubicle farm that is looking at your specific situation, doing the best they can to give you advice. I imagine some of those jobs will probably be sucked up by AI in the future, would be my guess. But I do think that there's something to be said for the actual relationship piece that people do want when it comes to something so personal as their finances. But from an investment management standpoint, there's already a massive rise in programs and platforms called robo-advisors, if you've heard of those, like Wealthfront, Betterment. All of these institutions are rolling out their own flavor of that, which I think has been a great thing to lower the cost of admission for people, because historically speaking, to work with a financial advisor, get a portfolio, even if that's just what you wanted just like a one-stop shop. I just want you to create a portfolio for me. Hey, you're going to pay 1% on that forever. And so Wealthfront came out of nowhere and did the same job for 0.25%. So a 75% reduction in cost to get a very similar result. Granted, you don't have like a human being that you're talking to one-on-one about other aspects of your life, which are oftentimes baked in to that 1% fee. If you do work with an advisor, they will typically work with you in other areas because they're managing your money, and that's how they're deriving their income. So to get to your answer, yes, I think AI has already been coming for a lot of these jobs in various ways, and advisors are having to pivot to find new ways to create value for their clients, for sure.
And what makes your client-student experience unique?
For me, I think everyone is looking for differentiation, right? And prior to hopping on this call, I was thinking about, there was someone tweeted, I wish I could remember who it was, but someone tweeted the concept that like most books can be a blog post. And that really resonated with me. Like, I love reading books and audiobooks, especially because I can turn up the dial and do it at like 2x speed while I'm driving, or if I'm on the bike at the gym. But I think in the same way, with all the short form content that is just exploding, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube, creating a new business within YouTube Shorts to elevate this style of content, right? I feel like we want the information now. So as it pertains to my stuff, whether it's a reel or on the course, I try to keep it very succinct and get to the point. I mean, I love talking about this personal finance stuff, and we could talk about all the nuanced stuff for a long time in a longer format, which I'm finally like rolling out a YouTube channel and hope to create some more long form content. But as it relates to the course, the point of it for most people is to just get you up to speed, get you the kind of, Tim Ferriss uses the language like minimum effective dose, right? If you're familiar with the concept, like boiling water, right? It's 212. You don't need 250 degrees to boil water. You need 212, right? So what's the minimum effective dose for people to get on board to get a base level of knowledge when it comes to personal finance so they can go back and live their life, is a big way that I think about that kind of thing.
Yeah, because you're preaching the idea of efficiency. When I think most people think about financial advisors, they think when they work with them, they're going to have to flip their whole life around and make these massive, gigantic changes. And while that's important, you're trying to say that small incremental changes can lead to a big effect. Is that what you were trying to say?
Man, I feel like, I'll pay you later for that one. I feel like you just nailed it for me, because I feel like I'm also a recovering perfectionist, which sounds kind of silly to say out loud, but like very genuinely, like I struggled for a long time. If I couldn't do something perfectly, then I was not going to do it at all.
Do you have an investment philosophy?
Yes. And 3 words, it would be index and chill, which there's a Twitter handle by that name, which I love, riffing off Netflix and chill, obviously. But the concept is that, again, with this philosophy of automation, it's really like, how can we take these decisions that need to be made and automate the process of them? So there's a couple things that I mean when I say index and chill. So when you look at the concept of a mutual fund, which is a massive, massive improvement via what was, really the status quo, which was you've got to go to a stockbroker and you've got to like know a guy, and that guy's got to have like the hot tips on what stocks are hot right now, right? Those days have long been gone for like 30 years now. That is like very dated way when it comes to thinking about investing. The advent of the mutual fund means that you can have access to like a bundle of these stocks, because again, when it comes to a single stock, if you don't have the price that it trades at ready to rock, if you don't have $150 to invest in whatever stock, then you're not investing in that stock, period. And then if you do, you only have that $150. And so if that company goes bust, your money goes to zero. With a mutual fund, you can spend $150. You can spend $10 to get into a mutual fund for the first time. And now you have access to 100+ different companies spread out in one kind of container that is the mutual fund. Funds are great. The challenge is when you say mutual fund, that implies typically that there's someone that's paid to like manage those companies and then pick the different companies that go into this fund, and they charge a fee for that service. Usually the average mutual fund is about 1%. Sounds like not a lot of money. Over time, over 30 years, compounded, that fee can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So back in the 70s, the founder of Vanguard wrote like a thesis when he was in college to say, what if we could just get the average of the market? What if we tried to not beat the market? Because 83% over a 5-year period, 83% of mutual funds fail to beat the market. So imagine paying extra for poor performance, because no one has a crystal ball. We don't know which mutual fund, what year is going to beat the market. So the founder of Vanguard, kind of came to this conclusion: if we can keep fees really, really low and just get the market average over time, then we can win, right? And so that is really the root of my philosophy as it relates to money. So then instead of picking the funds, our job just becomes putting as much money as we possibly can into these funds for a variety of reasons. Because number one, they outpace inflation over periods of time. Equity investments are most people's best defense for combating inflation over long periods of time. And what that does is grows our purchasing power. And then over time, the more that we grow that purchasing power, the more freedom we can obtain, the more that we're buying our time back, the more options we have. I am not an advocate for getting a bunch of money to then go buy stuff that goes down in value, like cars, and like flash culture, in my opinion, is really a stranglehold on the average person, because they're trying to like live up to this image that is not going to bring them joy or peace or happiness. It's only going to perpetuate this concept of what I mentioned earlier is, comparison, right? And keeping up with the next person. And so I'm really about the opposite of that. And so index investing allows for that. There are other investments that allow for that too. But this concept of, again, automating these decisions, once you've come to these conclusions, you can say, well, I'm just going to take a certain percentage of every single paycheck and put it over here and put it in a way that's going to grow my freedom over time. And that is what gets me excited.
So do you think taking control of your money can have a specific impact on your own health?
Yes. So I should have these stats memorized, but basically the number one cause for divorce is finances. That's also a major source of stress for people. I put myself in that category, right? When my stuff's not dialed in, it can lead to stress. Or when things slip through the cracks, it can lead to stress. So I think, again, I was talking to my wife about this, just that I feel like the stress thing is like there's two sides of a coin. There's things that we can do to like reduce or eliminate it. And then there's ways that we can manage it if we have it, right? If we can't like, hey, I can't snap my fingers and win the lottery and all my money problems go away overnight, right? What can I do to manage the stress? So again, exercise is massive, at least for me, for stress reduction or stress handling, right? And then again, anything that we can automate, like even silly things like, oh, I've got to pay for my vehicle registration. It seems like it creeps up on me every single year. But if I finally just suck it up and put it in my reminders app, then my phone will let me know like, hey, you need to take care of this so that it doesn't slip through the cracks and then you get pulled over because you haven't paid for your registration. So like those are like little things, but I think people have a lot more, on a daily basis to stress about when it relates to money. So that's why I'm such a big fan of the whole automate and chill philosophy.
Automate and chill. All right. I like that.
I think I might look it on a t-shirt one day. We'll see.
So why do we need a life insurance?
So I would say that our biggest asset is our ability to produce income, to go out into the workforce and bring back the bacon, right? That is what we are insuring when it comes to life insurance. Typically, yes, you can insure that your mortgage gets paid off. You can do all these other things, but it's the number one way to protect your loved ones as far as when you pass away, right? To ensure that the people that you leave behind, because we don't, we're obviously not guaranteed tomorrow. We all think that we are, and we all live our life like we've got, an infinite amount of time left on this earth. But the reality is not the case. And so for pennies on the dollar, as it relates to our income, we can ensure that our loved ones will have income in the event that we pass away. So I think that that's very critical. And most financial planners will take you, if they are doing kind of the full service, and there's definitely distinctions in the financial advisor, financial planning world where guys are investment only or they're very insurance focused. I think a mix of both is really prudent. And oftentimes, if you find the right person, and people don't like to talk about this, but they will begin with a protection first philosophy, which means evaluating the life insurance, the disability, even something as simple as most people don't know about, like an umbrella policy, which is just extra liability coverage. So you can get $1 million of liability coverage for like 10, 15 bucks, every month, so that if someone is on your property, they break their arm and they sue you, like that's going to go above and beyond what your property and casualty or what your normal like homeowners insurance will protect you for. So all that to say, I'm a big fan of, insuring against things that would be very, very costly to insure otherwise. Like, I'm not the guy that's saying, hey, you bought a new DVD player, let's get the extended warranty. I think that's probably a waste of your money, when it comes to small items like that. But if you can insure against the big things, death being the biggest of those, that would be a financial travesty for most families. I think that that is money well spent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are the ways that you could save money?
Yeah, I think frugality gets a bad rap sometimes, but I think, again, through my lens of like kind of a Christianity meets minimalism meets Fight Club, if you will, that we buy a lot of crap that we don't need, that doesn't positively impact our happiness for more than like a few moments. You've bought something, I'm sure, that you realize it becomes the new normal for you, or it becomes like the shine wears off pretty quickly, they say. So I'm just a big advocate for intentional living. And I think by nature, you reduce spending, AKA saving money. So there's like a little silly saying that like, you're only saving money if you're saving money. Mm-hmm. So what I mean is we are like brainwashed into believing that a sale saves us money. A sale does not save us money. Immediate reduce our spending, but saving money only happens when you move money out of your checking account into a savings or investment account, not when you just spend less, if that makes sense. Like, that is saving money, right? And so I'm an advocate for making those decisions and automating them. And then with whatever you've designated to spend, go for it.
An interesting conversation too.
Thank you.
So we talked a lot about saving money. How do you manage debt more effectively?
I think a lot of people are struggling with credit card debt. And I think it's so easy because, statistically speaking, we spend up to 18% more when we swipe a credit card than with a debit card. It's easy for the credit card company to tell us that, oh, well, we get all these protections and we're not liable for those dollars, but they will still want us to pay the bill at the end of the month, if it's a non-fraudulent charge, of course. And so we tell ourselves these things that make it very easy to swipe the plastic, and then we're paying for it for a long time coming. And so the irony is, and I'm not trying to beat anybody up here, but the irony is that the credit card company, like, we will absolutely sign off on the dotted line to pay 18, 20, 28, 30% to borrow money that we probably mostly have. I think people get started thinking like, I'll just keep it as an emergency. And then you swipe, and then something happens, you get laid off or something else. And then before you know it, you're racking up this credit card debt just to like go out to have dinner. And I think that that's a really dangerous cycle. So all that to say, I think people need to stop in their tracks and stop the bleeding first. Sometimes people recommend like putting it in a plastic bag and put it in the freezer. I think that might be a little extreme, I mean, you can just cut up a card. Like the credit card company will send you another card, I promise. So you can just cut it up. But the point is, I think just removing the temptation. I mean, we have like a sock drawer that we put like an extra debit card in or a credit card in. And so for a lot of people, when it comes to maximizing or, you know, managing the positive side that you can benefit from, like raising your credit score and things like that, is just setting up some bills on auto pay from a credit card. You can have multiple cards. If you're churning the cards, if you're trying to get the miles and bonuses, you can absolutely do that, but do it with your bills. That way your spending is not, you know, you're not tempted to overspend up to 18% just for the convenience factor of having a credit card or the allure of points. Again, to pay 30% to get 1% cash back. Obviously the math doesn't work on that, right? There are definitely people that make it work, that pay the balance off every month, and they're like crushing it with cash back and with points, and my hat is off to you. But if that's not you, if you have a balance and you're listening to this, then I would say stop the bleeding. Sometimes just taking it out of your wallet and switching to debit. Again, I think for anybody listening, separating your spending and just saying, I'm going to get a new bank account tomorrow, and we're just going to put our spending money in that bank account. We're going to set up a transfer to hit every week to this new bank account to give us that spending paycheck and make it easy and automatic. You'll be surprised at how easy it is to stick to that as you build that muscle. Because even me, I would get the bi-weekly paycheck and I tried to like have some spending money. And even a 2-week period, it just felt like pulling teeth to get me to have like the good behavior necessary to like wait until that next cash infusion came. Because you go into a long week and you have some fun, and then later you're like, where'd the money go? Right? But when you do it every week, you're like, I just have to, worst case, brown bag it to work, you know, pack my lunch for a couple of days until that money is coming right back at you. So all that to say, I think credit cards, you got to be really wary. But when it comes to debt repayment, thankfully, you can automate that too. You know, it could be, you know, you're doing kind of the Dave Ramsey debt snowball where you automate the minimum balance for every card you have, and then you just take extra and put it on top of the card. Pick one, usually the debt snowball, right? You're going to go with the lowest balance, which makes a ton of sense behaviorally. And then you just attack that one. And so you can automate that extra payment too. It doesn't have to be one of those things where it consumes your whole life and now your identity as a person is paying down debt. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. You can automate it all. You can go live your life and maybe spend that extra like bandwidth and mental energy to increase that income and increase that payment and get out sooner. Or I think a lot of times, you know, Jimbo, people get into debt because they don't have savings in the first place. And again, in my opinion, if you've got a savings account attached to a checking account at the same bank, no wonder you're having trouble saving money, because the barrier between the two is almost invisible. With one click of a button, you can drain that savings account when you want pizza on a Friday night, right? We've all done it. And so if you're like raising your hand in the car listening to this, I would just encourage you, you know, automate some of these things, you know, create some of these buffers for yourself so that it makes winning the default for you and your money. It makes winning with money a lot easier than just like, well, I'm going to white knuckle the rest of my life and hope that I get really good at budgeting. And, you know, the idea of like a budget date night, man, that's like so nauseating to me. I hate to be rude to anybody, but the idea of like, honey, let's talk about our finances over this steak and glass of wine, like that just rubs me the wrong way. So I think you can just automate it and go live your life is my goal.
Excellent. And, you know, I think one of the last few questions I have to ask you is, do you have any tips on how to invest wisely in your life, especially if you were to give advice to your younger self?
Yeah, man, I just think that incrementalism has been for me. And again, everyone's different. Like the perfectionist in me, I wish that I knew sooner that I didn't have it all figured out, or that kind of fear of failure, the fear of messing up, the fear of maybe disappointing somebody, that you can just choose. You have so much autonomy in your life, and you can choose to explore these things that light you up, and that you don't have to have it figured out. Like I'm, you know, again, I'm 38 years old, just starting a business, and I'm really loving the journey so far. And so I guess just allowing people to be easy on themselves, allowing yourself to make mistakes. I feel like when you grow up and go to school and get in the corporate world, if you go that route, like you feel like you can't ever make a mistake. You feel like you are under the microscope And I know I felt that way. And so just when you're doing your own thing or choosing what to explore in life, I think I heard this maybe even today, like you win or you learn, and if you can adopt that mentality, it's so liberating for people. So I wish I had a better grasp on that sooner.
And how can people reach you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm on all the social, the majority of the socials. Yeah, that's the main website is andyhoffman.me. If you want to get in touch, there are definitely ways to reach out to me directly there. I'm on Instagram and YouTube at Rogue Finance or rogue.finance on Instagram. And then, you can see the socials down below at the bottom of this page right there, right? So I'm on LinkedIn, posting every Monday through Friday, and then Facebook as well. So there's that. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And, I think I see stats like all the time, Jimbo, of how half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And so it doesn't have to be that way. Budgeting's been around long enough. You would think if it's working as well as everyone says it does, then we wouldn't be in this predicament. Obviously, there are other economic factors at play here. The reality is we can take control and we can make changes that are beneficial, that don't have to be like super life altering, right? You can just slow down, take it one step at a time.
Excellent. Okay. And are there any, final lasting words you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah, thank you so much. I would say, productivity is a huge part of our lives, and we're all trying to do in the same way when it comes to our time. We're all trying to manage a finite amount of time. We all have 24 hours in a day to manage. Money is the same. Most of us are dealing with a finite amount of money. And so we've got to figure out what is the highest and best use of those dollars at any given time. And if you can automate those decisions, then watch your stress go down. So I'd challenge people to consider that at this point. Just begin that thought exercise and let it take you where it takes you.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show, Mr. Hoffman. It's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome. Thank you so much for the conversation and great questions. I had a blast.
So just a few last things I'd like to shout out here to the audience. The first one is LifeWork Systems by Judy Ryan. This is our affiliate partner. She basically can help you. If you're a mid to high level business, she can go in, improve your HR infrastructure, your employee relationships, and make your business better overall. So if you want to have her consulting services or maybe speak to her and learn a bit more about why she might be relevant to your large business, reach out to me. I can give you the connection. And the next thing up there, that's our YouTube channel. Subscribe now, ring that bell. We're currently at like 104 subscribers. We definitely need some more, so ring that bell for me, please. Next thing is our Roku channel. We're also on Roku TV as well. This will be on Roku TV too. So again, get a Roku box, not just for this show, of course, but for all of the great experiences Roku has to offer. And yeah, check it out too. And then the final thing, Jimbo Paris Services, we're going to change this to consulting services, but essentially we go into your business, we can automate your social media account, I can build content for you, and I can give you promised growth rate on any type of external audit platform, whether that be social media, a podcast, ask me. So again, check us out and book a discovery call. All right. So that was the show. I'm Jimbo Paris. Thank you again for watching the Jimbo Paris Show. Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.